on a market-related question. I mean, what in a situation like this, what are you telling your clients?
Actually, like buying U.S. Treasuries, and then for a very different reason, but related reason. Because first of all, I mean, I've been making the case over the last 2 or 3 weeks that Trump has to bury the taco before the taco buries him. In other words, that, you know what, we're barely 6 months into the presidency. Trump has lost a lot of credibility by playing sort of the hardball with everybody and that kind of thing. And as you know, he's been forced to stand down on many occasions. And that has cost him a lot of credibility. And I found that, basically, in fact, this is why I predicted 2 weeks ago that, Trump is going to give the go-ahead to Israel to go hit Iran, because I feel that Iran is the lowest lying fruit in the forest. And Trump, by giving Israel the go-ahead to hit Iran, could actually regain his credibility as a tough negotiator. And I think, in that sense, I think it doesn't surprise me at all that earlier today, Trump came out saying, wow, the Republican Party, our new unity, we're not going to push through my big, beautiful bill. Because there is the big, beautiful bill is looking at some serious negotiation or hard fight between the fiscal conservatives and the moderates in the Senate and in the House in the coming basically 3 weeks. They have to get this thing done before the end of July, ahead of the debt ceiling thing. So I think the ability of Trump, I think to a great extent, I think Trump is counting on this whole Iran situation, that he, having acted decisively, having regained his credibility, is going to be able to see his leverage increase over some of these, essentially dissenters within his party in order to push through this thing. So I actually think that one of my biggest out of consensus view on the market is I think U.S. fiscal policy is going to be a lot tighter than people think, because I think the fiscal conservatives, the fiscal hawks, are going to be the big winner of this. And ironically, that Trump's decision to hit Iran is only going to help strengthen their position. And I think that makes me feel pretty bullish about treasuries, and especially given I think the economy is starting to slow. Certainly this is showing up in the weekly consumer borrowing data that I'm seeing, that's definitely seeing continued deceleration. So I like owning 5-year U.S. Treasuries, and I think it's very, very attractive. It's probably the most attractive part of the U.S., fixed income curve. So lots of different reasons, but ironically, I think 5-year Treasuries is a safe bet, and it's actually potentially a very good bet.
Wow, 396 is where the yield on the 5 is pricing right now. So if you like treasuries, you're looking for prices to go up and yields to go down. Does this assume that the Fed is going to aid and abet this by getting back to cutting interest rates? And if so, when and how much?
I think what Weller said last week sort of echoes my own view. He actually said he's the first Fed FOMC voting member to come out and said that July is potentially a live meeting, right? I mean, I'm not saying that like all others think like him, because it's very clear based on the dot plots last week, this is not the case. But I think Weller and I are sort of more or less on the same page insofar that I think that the whole tariff story is going to have a much bigger impact on growth than inflation, whereas the market apparently believes that it's going to have a bigger impact on inflation and growth, which I think is completely uncalled for. So I think that's really the big question. The question is to what extent U.S. businesses are able to pass on their higher costs onto the consumers. I believe their ability is going to be greatly basically constrained, especially given the fact that we now have a student debt delinquency issue in the U.S. that's constraining credit access to 8 million people who are currently either in default or in the rear in terms of repaying their student debt. I think all in all, there's no sign to me that consumers in the U.S. are going to build out Trump or build out U.S. businesses, or for that matter, the U.S. stock market, in terms of the implication of this trade war. And that makes me feel that the market is completely on the wrong side of this bet.